I remember that night like the air turned instantly cold and raw. The terrifying crackle of the flames, the acrid, choking smell of burning rubber and diesel, and the insane orange light reflecting off the chrome of my old, faithful tractor. That machine wasn't just equipment. It was the anchor of my life, the legacy my granddaddy handed down, and it was burning right there, consuming years of sweat and history. And across the dusty county road, under the sickly yellow glow of a newly installed street lamp, I saw her, Penelope Penny Albright, in a ridiculously crisp lavender blazer, arms crossed, phone held high, filming the destruction like she was recording a personal victory parade. She was smiling, folks, genuinely smiling, all because I had politely, but firmly, said no. No, I wouldn't join her HOA. No, I didn't need her arbitrary rules. She thought she could teach me a lesson with fire, but what she didn't know yet, what she hadn't bothered to check, was that I wasn't just some stubborn old farmer. I was the elected sheriff of this entire damned county. Before we dive into how Penny Albright earned herself a 5-year stay in county lockup, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I always appreciate knowing where justice is being served tonight. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because this is the story of how an HOA queen tried to redraw the boundary line and ended up finding out exactly who writes the law around here. They say trouble always starts quiet. For me, it began 6 months prior with a knock on my field fence and a voice that was pure vinegar disguised as honey. "Good afternoon, Mr. Stone," she chirped, standing there in that stiff, unnecessary blazer, clipboard clutched like a scepter. "I'm Penny Albright, president of the newly formed Copper Creek Estates HOA. I just wanted to personally welcome you to the neighborhood." I leaned on my pitchfork. I tend to find physical labor helps me focus on phonies, and looked her over the fence. "Appreciate the thought, ma'am, but I'm Jedediah Stone, and I've been running this farm since '95. The neighborhood already knows me." "Thanks." She laughed, a thin, metallic sound that grated on my nerves. "Of course, but we thought it would be marvelous if you joined our association. We're creating a cohesive, organized community now that so many refined residents are moving in." I already knew the script. They start with cohesion and end with fines for having an unscheduled nap in your own hammock. "Penny," I said, wiping my hands on my dusty jeans. "My land is Stone County property. It's outside your boundary. I'm not joining your HOA, and I'm not subject to your rules." Her smile didn't just twitch, it hardened. "Boundaries can be flexible, Mr. Stone. And attitudes, well, attitudes often require adjustment." She didn't like being told no. Not one bit. "I hope you'll reconsider. We do things together here in Copper Creek." "That's nice," I replied, giving her a slow, steady nod. "I do things my way right here." She left with a theatrical sigh and a brittle wave, but the tension in her posture was a clear promise of war. 2 days later, an unmarked letter arrived. "Community participation is mandatory for harmony and safety." That night, I spotted a drone, cheap but persistent, buzzing near my main barn. It had the tacky Copper Creek logo taped to the side. I just grabbed my strongest spotlight and blinded the camera until it zipped away. By the weekend, someone had spray-painted "Obey or Pay" on my main gate. Now, in my line of work, you learn to spot the moment annoyance tips over into criminal intent. But at that specific point, I was just Jed Stone, the old farmer with a stubborn streak. I figured I'd wait her out. Penny would get bored trying to boss around a man who spent his days talking to cows. I was wrong. 3 nights later, around 10 o'clock, I was inside, trying to focus on a dry policy manual, a habit that stuck from my actual job, when I heard it. A sharp pop, not loud, just wrong. Then the orange glow hit the window. I ran out barefoot, throat choked with panic. My machine, my father's old, reliable workhorse, was engulfed. The fire was licking up the tires, reaching for the engine, smoke rolling thick and black into the night sky. I grabbed the nearest hose, wrenched the valve. Nothing. The line was severed. I sprinted to the well pump, cursing dry. Someone had closed the main shutoff valve. I stood back, helpless, the heat scorching my face, watching generations of hard work burn down to twisted metal. And then I saw her. Across the road, Penny was standing there, phone up, filming. Her face, illuminated by the hellish orange light, was utterly calm. When she saw me looking, she gave that awful, knowing smile. The kind that says, I told you so. Then she slipped into her pristine white SUV and drove off into the darkness, leaving me alone with the fire. The volunteer crew came, but the tractor was a skeleton. Smells like accelerant, the lead guy mumbled, kicking at the melted plastic. I just nodded. I knew. They left around midnight. I didn't chase her, didn't call the station. I walked inside, poured myself a bourbon I didn't need, and sat down at the kitchen table. Then I reached into the drawer, the one I kept locked, and pulled out my heavy, silver-plated badge. It had a small, familiar chip from 20 years ago, when I dropped it chasing a car thief. I hadn't worn it full-time since I won the sheriff's election 4 months ago, taking a sabbatical to run the farm. But staring at the wreckage outside, I knew the sabbatical was over. This was no longer a civilian squabble. The next morning, Penny had the audacity to stroll up my driveway, sunglasses on, coffee cup in hand. "Oh, my word," she drawled, putting a hand over her chest. "What a tragedy, Mr. Stone. The whole community is just devastated." I folded my arms, letting my shirt hang loose. "You were here last night, Penny. Out by the road. I saw you." She smirked, blinklessly. "Jed, you can't go around accusing people without a shred of evidence. Perhaps it was faulty wiring? Maybe an accident." "Accidents," I said, my voice low and steady. "Don't smile back. And they don't cut water lines first." Her smirk wavered, replaced by a flicker of true fear, quickly masked. "You know, refusing to join the HOA doesn't exactly make you a team player. Things happen when folks isolate themselves." "Is that a threat, Penny?" I asked, taking a slow step toward her. "Or just incredibly poor phrasing?" "It's community advice," she snapped, turning sharply on her heel, her designer heels clicking on the gravel like exclamation points. That day, I went to work. I photographed everything like I trained my deputies. The faint tire tracks, the cut water line, the melted rubber. Then I drove to Jenkins Hardware. The owner, a sweet old lady named Martha, knew me instantly. "Jed, honey, that tractor. Awful thing," she said, shaking her head. "Martha, did you sell any 5-gallon fuel containers, red plastic ones, recently?" "Couple of days ago, yes. Bought 2. The lady drove a white SUV. Said it was for her lawn care equipment. I showed her the video footage from the night before. Penny's face, captured clearly by my front gate camera. Martha squinted at the screen. "That's her. All right. Wore that fancy blazer like she was buying perfume, not gasoline. Keep this quiet, Martha. Between us. Bill," she whispered, using my sheriff's name. "You ain't planning on handling this. Old school, are you?" I just gave her a small, tight grin. Old habits die hard when arson's involved. That night, I started digging through the HOA's public records and their private online group, accessed via a burner account. On their private feed, one thread was alarming. "Penny A. Some residents need a strong reminder that rules are not optional." "Tom S. You mean the farmer?" "Penny A. Let's just say he'll learn about consequences soon." Lynn K. "Don't get yourself arrested, Penny." "Penny A. Only if someone calls the sheriff. And last I checked, he has no friends on the board." I leaned back, the faint reflection of my badge in the laptop screen. No friends on the board? Maybe not. But I had the ultimate authority. Still, this wasn't the time to expose myself. I wanted her to escalate, to step into the trap I was meticulously setting. The next day, I drove to the county registrar. The clerk, a quick-witted young woman named Cheryl, pulled up the Copper Creek files. "Sheriff Stone," she greeted me formally, despite my jeans. "Looking for property lines? Specifically, I'm curious about my own." She scrolled down. "That's interesting. There's a request for territorial annexation filed 3 weeks ago, signed by Penny Albright. It lists your land as future inclusion. Was it approved?" Cheryl shook her head firmly. "Denied twice. She filed a final appeal last week, claiming community necessity. She's trying to redraw the map, Jed." That evening, another letter was taped to my gate. "Final notice. Your property remains an eyesore and a danger to community image. Remove the debris, or the HOA will take corrective action." And signed, just the Copper Creek logo. The woman who burned my tractor now wanted to fine me for the resulting unsightly damage. The sheer audacity. She wanted more than compliance. She wanted submission. And she was about to find out she'd just declared war on the wrong uniform. I spent the next week installing high-tech, motion-triggered infrared cameras and contact sensors along the entire fence line. I parked the blackened tractor wreck right at the boundary, an ugly, silent piece of bait. Sunday night, 10:42 p.m. My phone pinged. Movement alert. Two figures, one tall, one short, both in black hoodies, were slipping through a loosened section of the fence. I zoomed in. The shorter one's movement, the way she held her shoulders, unmistakable. Penny. They disappeared behind the barn. A few minutes later, the mic caught a faint metallic clank. They were planting something near the wreck. I waited until they left. Then I went to check. Half buried in the dirt, exactly where my legal boundary lay, was a small, painted wooden stake, bright red, labeled HOA property line. Future Greenway. I almost laughed. Congratulations, Penny, I muttered, shaking my head. You just trespassed on county property, and you documented your criminal intent. The next morning, I called my most trusted deputy, Marcus Mac Thorne. Mac, I've got a situation brewing. Don't log this yet. Just listen. I laid out the entire history, the drone, the fire, the stake, the arrogance. You're thinking of pressing charges for arson? Mac whistled. Not yet. I corrected. I'm thinking of pressing record. Over the next few days, Penny ramped up her PR campaign. Smear tactics in the local paper, viral videos of my neglect, and official letters to the county requesting a hearing on my environmental hazards. She was trying to create enough public chaos to justify her corrective action. She was good, I'll give her that. She made bureaucracy feel like a moral imperative. But I was quietly working the county system. I filed formal complaints, not about the harassment, but about the legal violations, unauthorized boundary marking, using the red stake, falsified HOA petitions, and potential misuse of HOA funds. I used my badge, discreetly, to make sure those complaints landed on the right desks. The tension peaked on Thursday. Penny announced her big event, the Community Cleanup Initiative, scheduled for my property line that Saturday. The flyer was everywhere. Join us this Saturday. Help us reclaim neglected spaces and beautify our shared land. Friday evening, I met Mac at the substation. Let me get this straight, Sheriff, he said, adjusting his vest. You invited the enemy to your own funeral. Not a funeral, Mac. I corrected, a cold grin touching my lips. A sting operation. She'll bring her whole board, contractors, and a cameraman. They will trespass, record everything, and call it community service. Once she takes one step past that fence line, we move in. No guns, no shouting, just cuffs and silence. You really think she'll show? Penny Albright never misses a stage. Saturday morning was clear and sharp. My land looked like perfect bait. The blackened tractor wreck, the half-collapsed fence line, the dusty ground. At 9:14 a.m., the caravan arrived, white SUVs bearing the HOA seal like a suburban military convoy. Penny stepped out, sunglasses perfect, clipboard ready, radiating self-righteous authority. Behind her came her two key board members, Tom, the nervous treasurer, and Lynn, the social media chronicler, camera ready. All right, everyone. Penny's voice carried across the field. Let's make this quick. We'll start by removing debris and officially marking the new border. She pointed dramatically at the wreck. See that? That's what happens when negligence goes unchecked. Unacceptable. Lynn, film this for the record. She posed perfectly for the camera. And then she gave the final order. Let's move the old debris, clear it out. This area will be the first extension of the Copper Creek Greenway project. Two hired laborers lifted a broken fence post and dragged it inward onto my land. One hesitated. Ma'am, this line looks like it's on his side. Penny scoffed, her voice dripping venom. Honey, his side doesn't exist anymore. It's all community land now. That was the line. The final, blatant, publicly recorded admission of criminal intent and boundary fraud. I took one step forward, dropping my hand to my side, speaking into the tiny mic clipped to my collar. All right, boys, move in. From the cover of the tree line behind my barn, two patrol trucks rolled out, slow and deliberate, tires crunching the gravel. Mac stepped out first, badge gleaming. Penny froze mid-sentence, blinking like she'd been hit by a flashbulb. Mac, she stammered, utterly bewildered. What is this? He didn't answer. He just pointed to me. I walked out from the shadow of the barn, straight toward her. She tried desperately to laugh it off, but her gaze fell to my open jacket, revealing the badge clipped to my belt. Her lips parted in utter, paralyzed disbelief. You're a cop. Not quite, I said calmly, my voice now the deep, official tone of county law. I'm the sheriff, Penny. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute. Penelope Albright, I continued, you are trespassing on county property, engaging in unauthorized alteration of boundaries, and obstructing a lawful investigation. You have the right to remain silent. Tom dropped his clipboard. Lynn's camera, still rolling, shook violently in her hand. This is insane, Penny shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. You can't arrest me for helping the community. I pointed to the blackened tractor. Helping the community? You mean committing arson and then publicly orchestrating a cleanup of your own crime scene? I didn't. That's slander. Mac, I ordered, roll the footage. Mac held up his phone and played the drone clip on speaker. Penny's SUV, her silhouette, the flash of fire, and the faint, chilling recording of her voice. Maybe now he'll understand. She went utterly white. And now, I continued, you're facing charges of arson, vandalism, fraud, and felony utility tampering. Mac approached her calmly, cuffs in hand. Ma'am, please turn around. You're making a mistake. I run this community, she screamed. I smiled faintly. Not anymore. She lunged, finger pointed, the pink blazer finally crumpled. You tricked me, Stone. You set me up. No. Penny, I corrected, as Mac clicked the cuffs shut. You set yourself up the moment you tried to redraw a line that wasn't yours. By noon, the news had spread faster than her viral videos. The HOA queen was arrested by the sheriff she tried to bully. Lynn's camera footage, capturing the entire exposure, leaked online instantly. The comments were ruthless. By sunset, the Copper Creek sign had been quietly dismantled. That night, sitting on my porch, the air was silent again. The black marks on the ground felt different now. Less like scars, more like signatures of a battle won. 3 days after the arrest, the county DA confirmed the charges: arson, trespassing, destruction of property, and a host of fraud counts. The search warrant on Penny's home office turned up forged petitions, fake invoices, and proof she'd been skimming HOA dues. She hadn't just been a tyrant, she'd been an embezzler. At the press conference, the DA was emphatic. I stayed in the back, watching the crowd. The very people who had once cheered her, now staring at the floor in collective shame. Later, a group of neighbors approached me cautiously, including Tom, the nervous board member. Sheriff Stone, one woman said, We didn't know she was like that. We should have seen the signs. Maybe next time, I said gently. Don't wait for the smoke before you believe there's a fire. That afternoon, Jerry, a farmer from down the road, drove up with his old red tractor. It runs, Jed, he said, a simple, honest gesture. Figured you could use it till you rebuild. I put a hand on the cool metal. Appreciate it, Jerry. Guess good neighbors still exist. Always did, Bill, he chuckled. We just needed the bad ones gone to notice. 2 months later came the trial. I testified briefly, professionally. The moment the prosecution played the video, her face, her voice, the room went dead. She was found guilty on all counts. When the judge read the sentence, 5 years with probation, Penny didn't cry. She just looked at me with that same icy arrogance. As the bailiffs led her away, she muttered, You think you've won, Sheriff? People like me always come back. I just shook my head. Not to Copper Creek, you won't. The trial was the end of Penny, but not the end of the conflict. Tom and another loyalist were later caught trying to vandalize my property again. They thought she'd return to fix everything. I caught them, cuffed them, and the DA added conspiracy to commit arson. The illusion of the HOA was officially dead. The HOA board dissolved. The county implemented the Albright Amendment, ironically, requiring strict oversight and verification for all HOA activities. Her name, carved into policy as a warning. I got back to the quiet life. I fixed the fence myself, with help from my neighbors. The sound of hammers and laughter felt better than any courtroom victory. My last act was nailing a small, hand-carved wooden sign to the corner of my rebuilt fence. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a policy. It was just 3 simple words: respect the line. That was the only law that mattered in the end. Penny thought power came from control. But real power, folks, comes from restraint, from doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, and knowing exactly where your line is. So, I have to ask you, was I justified in setting that trap and exposing Penny so publicly, or did I simply abuse the power of the badge for personal revenge? Where is the line between justice and vengeance in a situation like this? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you've ever had to stand your ground against a power-hungry neighbor, hit that subscribe button, because there are always more stories of justice waiting just beyond the fence.